Hi everybody, I'm going to make a pan-seared lemon dill salmon. I just got a lemon dill vinaigrette recipe that I posted today on Facebook, which I'll post again after this. And it's just a very basic vinaigrette, which you could do any vinaigrette that you wanted to on this, but I just kind of wanted to show you how I pan-sear things and just how that can kind of change the taste. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn my oven on 350 just so I can get that heated up as I'm going here. And then second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a medium heat because I want to warm up my skillet. So I always warm up my skillets because I want them to be hot. And this is a grill pan. This is one of the pans that I use if I pan sear something. The brand on this one is All Clad, and the reason that I get certain brands is because I can take this from the stovetop right into the oven, which is actually something that I'm going to do. So I'm going to use this particular grill pan. You would not have to use a grill pan. You could really use any kind of skillet that you want to. So I've got my heat turned to medium, and I've got my grill pan going. I'm about to heat up some oil too, but I wanted to show you two other pans. This one's Calphalon. And again, it's round. There's no difference between it being round and it being square. So it's another grill pan. I have two of them because we used to make Dad's salmon for the week, and we would make it, for the whole entire week. And I would use two grill pans to make all the salmon for the week, and we'd pan sear it like this. And then another pan that I have is heavy. It's an iron skillet, and this is grill pan. This is actually what I normally make my ribeyes on. Sometimes I'll make hamburgers on this. So this is just an old-fashioned iron skillet, but it's set up like a grill pan. And again, I make my steaks on this inside the house. It does make a little bit more smoke in the house than what I like because I don't have a Viking oven with a master vent on top, but I do love to make a steak on here if I wasn't going to do something on the grill. So just know that there's quite a few options for pan searing, but today I'm just going to use my grill pan over here. So again, not a normal skillet, but just a typical grill pan. I'm going to use avocado oil because I want a little bit higher, heat temp. So I'm going to use olive oil for the dressing, but then I'm going to use avocado oil for this. And so I'm just going to drizzle in my skillet. And the grocery store will skin your fish if you ask them to. So for the salmon, they will take the skin off the back. That's that black part. And boy, is that convenient to not have to do that. So if you go to Whole Foods, if you go to Deerbergs, if you go to Schnucks, wherever you go, they'll take that skin off. But they actually a lot of times will have pieces there that that don't have the skin on it, but just to kind of save you some time. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the vinaigrette. And again, I'll have the exact recipe for y'all on Facebook so that you don't have to follow this and write things down. So don't worry about that because I'll have it all listed for you. I just want you to get the general gist of it just so you can kind of see how simple this entire process is. So I'm starting with my lemon juice. I just took fresh lemons. I don't buy glass jars of lemon juice because this is easy. You just take a lemon, you cut it in half, you put it in your recipe. You don't have to actually, buy something that's already gone through another step or someone's hands have been on it. This is a lemon, cut it in half. It's an organic lemon. This is going to actually call for 3 tablespoons. I use these little prep bowls. These are actually measuring cups. I have tons of them. I like to collect measuring cups and I like to collect measuring spoons. But I use these as little prep bowls just as I go along. I kind of get everything ready. I get it all set aside, and then I might be doing some things, around the house, and then I'm ready. I just got it all right here. Either that or I've got everything in my cabinet right there, and I'll just sit and grab at things and just sit over there and kind of prep everything. So I've got my lemon juice, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, and then it calls for a tablespoon of vinegar. I'm using red wine vinegar, but you could just as easily use apple cider vinegar. What you don't want to use would be balsamic vinegar because balsamic vinegar is going to it's going to convert super fast. So it's going to really turn into a sugar response. So the red wine vinegar would be safer in that area, and then apple cider vinegar would have so many other medicinal benefits. So given the opportunity, if you like the taste of apple cider vinegar, that would work great too. I just like the flavor of that red wine vinegar when I'm making fish. It's just something, my personal preference. You certainly don't have to make it that way. So I'll throw my tablespoon of the red wine vinegar in there, and then it's asking for 1/4 of a cup of oil. And I just always try to buy organic oil when I can. I try to buy it always in a glass container. I can't be hyper meticulous about every living detail of everything that I do, but so I don't buy everything at Whole Foods. I don't buy everything at Fresh Time. I honestly buy most of my stuff from Schnucks and Dierbergs, but Dierbergs has a lot of options, and really we really rarely go to Schnucks. We almost always go to Dierbergs. Dierbergs has a lot of organic options, so if you're really trying to stay organic. So I'm going to throw 1/4 of a cup of olive oil in here with it. Just try to get olive oil that you think tastes good, because if you're making a vinaigrette, you're going to taste the olive oil. So you really want to make sure it's a flavor that you like. You can buy extra light olive oil. That's not extra virgin. It's different. It's actually called extra light. And it's called extra light because the taste isn't quite as strong. It's not quite as pungent. And sometimes people appreciate that when you're making a vinaigrette. So that might be a consideration when you're doing a vinaigrette, is maybe get an extra light version and see how you like the taste of that. Again, remember my pan is just kind of warming up over here. So I've got the heat up because I want to hear some sizzle when I put this salmon in here. But I also want, you know, my pan to be fairly covered over here. So I get my oil in, I've got my vinegar in, I've got my lemon juice in. And now it's calling for dill, so I'm going to put my 1/4 of, or 1/2 teaspoon of dill in there. It's calling for salt and pepper. I just go ahead and mix my salt and pepper in together. And then it calls for sugar, but instead of sugar, I just put stevia in it. So I use the pure stevia for that, and I use the Now Foods brand that I get at O'Fallon Nutrition. So the stevia looks like this. Better Stevia, Now Foods brand, and I get it at O'Fallon Nutrition. And it comes with this little bitty tiny spoon, and I just want you to see this up close because this is a small spoon. And so I just put 3 of these in there to sweeten this up. Now, it's your taste preference. You can trial it and see what you think, and if you want a little bit more of the stevia in there, put a little more stevia in there. If you're buying stevia and it has dextrose or it has maltodextrin in it, then there's a corn component, or it's not completely gluten-free. So I try to get the pure version of stevia, and again, O'Fallon Nutrition has multiple options when it comes to that. So the last thing that this calls for is Dijon mustard. And I talked in my last video about how Whole Foods had several different types of mustards that were made with apple cider vinegar, which I'm impressed with because white vinegar is corn derived. So I definitely appreciate being able to find things made with apple cider vinegar. And so this is very quality ingredients. It's just apple cider vinegar, water, organic mustard seeds, sea salt, and organic spices. And this is just the Whole Foods 365 brand of Dijon mustard. But I showed them in my last video, they have several mustards I bought. I found a horseradish mushroom or mustard. I found just a basic yellow mustard, but they were all made with apple cider vinegar, which if you have, a disease like an autoimmune disease like I have, you really want to avoid corn at all costs. And it matters. Those little details matter if you're using white vinegar or if you're using apple cider vinegar, or if you're using dextrose or maltodextrin. Those things will end up catching up with you. So I've got get me a spoon out here. I've got my Dijon mustard that I'm going to add to it. And then that's it. That's all the vinaigrette was. It's just so basic. It's impossible to find a salad dressing at the grocery store that is worth consuming. O'Fallon Nutrition sells a few brands. Primal is a good brand. Even at the gym, we sell Simple Girl. That's a good brand, but I will walk the aisle to see if they've come up with anything new often at Dierbergs. And it's nothing against Dierbergs. They just don't make quality products that they sell to the grocery stores anymore in terms of salad dressings. I remember years ago, Roger and I both used to tell our clients to do the Newman's Only vinegar and oil dressing. And then out of nowhere, I'm at the grocery store and I look at the bottle and they don't have olive oil in it anymore. They switched it to soybean oil and canola oil. So here we're recommending this salad dressing that we think is a good quality product, but I guess the Newman's Only version got bought out, so they decided to sell maybe that division of their company. And then before we know it, the salad dressing that we think is great is now being made with soybean oil. It was that simple. I have a vinaigrette. It's that basic. All you're doing is you're taking lemon juice, you're taking olive oil, you're taking whichever type of acid that you want through the vinegar, and then you're adding seasoning to it. I just happen to add dill, salt, and pepper, and a little bit of stevia, and then the Dijon mustard. But just imagine all of the different varieties that you could have of this. I mean, it's just so many different things that you could do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spoon a little bit of this over the salmon. So I've got my salmon kind of separated here, and I'm just going to start with this being on here just a little bit. I want to, you know, leave some of this so that I can kind of baste my salmon as I go along, like as it's searing in the pan. And then at the very end, I'm going to pour the remainder of this dressing on top of the salmon, and I'm going to just throw it in the oven and let it finish cooking. Now, everybody has a different taste preference when it comes to fish in terms of how they want it cooked. A lot of people, I mean, I don't eat raw fish. It's not because of some sort of, you know, weird concern that I'm going to get sick. I don't like the taste of it. So when I make salmon, I want it to be done, you know, so I actually work pretty hard at making sure it's done. But the pan searing, what it's going to do is it's going to take these flavors and it's almost going to like create a crust for it. So it's really, it might take you one more step, but it's a worthwhile step for sure. So I've heated my pan up, like I said, on medium heat. And I'm just going to take my salmon, and can you hear that sizzle? That's what I really want. I want to get that sizzle when I first put it down. So I'm going to throw these three across my grill pan. I'm just going to wash my hands real quick. All right. So I'm going to let this just kind of sit on the heat, maybe 3 minutes. I'm just going to kind of play with it and see. It's really just a look and see kind of thing. You know, if you really like it to get dark, then keep it on there. And then I'm going to take my dressing, my vinaigrette that I made, the lemon dill vinaigrette with some Dijon mustard. And I'm just going to put a little bit of it on there because when I flip this, I want these flavors to start to cook into this fish. So I'm just going to kind of baste it a little bit with this. And you can be as liberal as you want. Okay. Just kind of get it to where it's well coated. And I could have seasoned that salmon. I could have salt and peppered it, put a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, could have done all that. But because I knew I was adding that vinaigrette to it, I just kind of kept it plain Jane, didn't put anything on it. And I was just going to let my vinaigrette do the work. And so I'm going to pull this. I'm going to try to pull this even a little bit. Actually, I'll pull this to you so you guys can see it. Knowing me, I'll probably move the camera and then drop it on the ground in the middle of the process. So I just get my little flippers out, and while it's cooking a little bit, I might kind of take up the edges here just to kind of see how I'm looking. And I want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to take my time on that. Now, I've got this guy here, and I just wanted to show everybody, this is just something that I ordered off of Amazon. You can get these at Williams-Sonoma, you can get them at Target, you can get them at Bed Bath & Beyond. So these are the easiest things in the world. You don't need them. I just use the bowl, so it's not necessary. But this is just a helpful salad dressing maker. So if you wanted to make your own vinaigrette, you could do this. And so what it'll do is it'll kind of give you an idea or a gauge of where to put the vinegar, where to put the oil, you know, and then it's just like any old standard shaker cup. You're just going to put all your ingredients in here, and then you're just going to shake it up. And another great way of making a vinaigrette is just use your blender. Just throw all your ingredients in your blender, get it done, and then it's finished. It's the easiest thing, especially if you have maybe a couple raspberries. You want to put a couple raspberries in there, make a raspberry vinaigrette. You can kind of emulsify that real quickly. So I'm just going to check on this salmon, see how it's looking. Like I said, I like mine a little bit more on the done side. So and it may or may not want to stick a little bit to the pan, but that's really not that big a deal. I'm not too worried about that, so I'm going to let that cook a little bit longer. And then show you that the salt that we use is the Celtic sea salt, and that is something that we also get at O'Fallon Nutrition. You don't have to be afraid to use salt if you're using sea salt, because that salt is going to be mineralized, so you're going to not only just be getting sodium, you'll be getting sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and chloride. So you want to make sure you get balanced minerals, and I get the Celtic sea salt, and I get that at O'Fallon Nutrition, and they also have the pink Himalayan sea salt as well. And then they will have that Bragg's apple cider vinegar at O'Fallon Nutrition as well, if you're kind of going in with a list. And then that Dijon mustard that I get from Whole Foods, that's a great quality product. And then that other product would be the Now Foods brand on the stevia. So I'm going to finally give this that flip that I think it's going to need. And I'm looking through the center, and I can see, okay, my edges are starting to cook, but my center's really not cooking. And I'm going to want this to be more done. So I'm going to let it cook on the other side to kind of get a better crust on the other side. But then I'm going to throw it in the oven with that dressing kind of on top of it. And I'm going to let it cook in the oven for probably another 8 minutes. That's just my desired preference, 8 to 10 minutes, because I like the fish to be more done. If you are the type of person that really wants it to be like more medium cooked, then you just kind of have to gauge this. But when you look at the side of the salmon, you're going to be able to see how done it's getting. Okay, so kind of check this guy. Starting to get a little bit of a crust. That was good. All right, I'm going to let that cook on that side, and then I'm going to show you what this looks like a little bit right before I put it in the oven. And so knowing I'm going to put this in the oven, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of baste it up a little bit more with my dressing so that it'll bake in that. And I'm okay with it cooking on the stovetop in that too. Just kind of sizzle that around. And then I'm going to reserve a little bit of this for when I'm finished. And then I'll probably put that on a bed of, you guess it, rice cauliflower, or you could put that on some zucchini noodles, and you could just throw a little bit more of that vinaigrette on top of that, and it's delicious. Now, salmon is not the only fish that you could make like this. I mean, you could get swordfish, you could get halibut, you could get whatever your preference is and make it the same exact way. And there's so many different vinaigrettes that you can make. And the only thing I did today was I said, okay, I want to show you all how to make salmon. I have never made this vinaigrette before. I just went out to Pinterest and I typed in clean vinaigrette dressing. That's all I typed. And I came up with this lemon dill vinaigrette, and it called for sugar, and I just deleted the sugar and put stevia in. But otherwise, all the ingredients were okay. It also called for champagne vinegar, but instead of the champagne vinegar, I just put the apple cider vinegar or the red wine vinegar in there. So there's always a way for you to change it up. Just use your clean ingredients with whatever you're doing. It's easy. So I'm going to check this other side and kind of see how it's going. And then when I used to make Dad's salmon for him, this is after he had his heart attack, we used to prepare his food for him every week. I used to like to even sear it on the sides. So I would even go as far as to sear it on the sides because I really like feeling like it has almost like a crust. And so if you haven't ever seen that before, let me get a plate so that I can show you what I mean by that crust. So because I had some herbs in there to start this, it's got the, the actual vinaigrette that I made. So see how it's starting to brown on the top? That tastes really good. So it almost caramelizes whatever you put on it. So that vinaigrette is caramelizing on the top here. And I'm telling you, it is tasty. So what I said I did for Dad's when I would make his is I would literally flip it over on its side sometimes and just let it kind of get the edges cooked and just let it sit on its side a little bit because I felt like it just tasted so good when it was browned. And then as I'm flipping it, and some pieces are better than others to do that, as I'm flipping it, I'm seeing the center of it, and it's still looking a little bit pink, so that's why I need to bake it. You could do it this way and not bake it, and it would work just fine. So you don't have to put it in the oven. Again, I just like it to be more done. So I just kind of flipped these on the side because I wanted to brown those sides just a little bit. It's absolutely not necessary. So I'm going to flip it over one more time. And I could just sit here and finish this cooking. John's making faces at me. But I could just sit here and finish this cooking all right here. I don't even really have to put that in the oven. There's no reason to put it in the oven. Again, I just like it more done. So one more final time, I'm going to put this vinaigrette. I'm going to turn my heat off. And I'm actually going to take it off the heat a little bit. I'm going to bring it over here so you guys can see it. And I'm just going to put the rest of this vinaigrette on it. And then I'm going to throw it in the oven. And like I said, I'm going to throw it in the oven for about 8 minutes. So that's what it looks like. Okay, see how it's kind of browned? And I'm just going to, and the other side is browned pretty good too. You can kind of see that. But since this one's a little less browned on this side, I'm actually going to cook it on that side. So I've got my lemon, dill, mustard Dijon vinaigrette. And I'm going to take it by the spoonful and just pour it on top. And of course my pan is still hot, so it's still cooking. Put a little bit more of that on top. And I'm definitely going to still reserve some of this dressing because I want some for the very end. So when this is completely finished, I can set that on top of my riced cauliflower. And then I can take the rest of that dressing and just kind of drizzle it over the top just to finish it up. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my salmon and I'm going to just throw it in the oven. Because of the type of pan it is, I can throw that in the oven and it can just cook in the oven. And that's why I like to use that type of pan, because I can just go from the stovetop right into the oven. And I don't even know how many minutes that took us. I don't even know if that took us 5 minutes to make that. So we made a vinaigrette and we made salmon, 5 to 8 minutes. Not that big a deal. So any fish that you like. Now here's another idea. If you like chicken, I would pound out a couple pieces of chicken, get your meat tenderizer, and I would, let me just double check here. Do you prepare tuna similar? Is salmon more your preference because of the taste or other reasons? You could definitely get a tuna steak. I love to get a tuna steak and pan sear it like this with different types of vinaigrettes, because what I'll do with a tuna steak is I will get a big bowl after it's cooked and just fork it apart and just make it like tuna, and then you don't feel like you need the mayonnaise because it's cooked in this vinaigrette and it's really good. And then if you lettuce wrap that, it's delicious. And even if you wanted to put a little bit of guacamole in there and then lettuce wrap that, you could do that. So that's a really good question. But yeah, tuna steak works great in there. That's a Okay, I think I'm back. I'm sorry. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason I lost the connection, which has never happened in all my times of doing this. So that's really strange. But we have about 100 different pieces of equipment on the internet right now. I don't know why that would matter, but I apologize for that delay. But we were asking, someone had asked if I would do tuna steak the same way. And yes, that is a great way of doing tuna steak. And you don't have to fork it apart and make it like tuna. You can just sit there and eat it like a tuna steak. But I love making tuna that way. I like the taste of salmon as well. So, whatever your preference is, you pan sear it. But what I was getting ready to say before I lost the connection was, if you are a chicken person, you want to have chicken, use that grill pan, get your meat tenderizer, and flatten out your chicken breast. And Deerbergs actually sells chicken cutlets, and so does Whole Foods, the thinned out. And those are delicious made like this. If you can pan sear your chicken breasts and season them with this vinaigrette and then sear them on each side and then bake them in a cooling rack inside a baking sheet, oh, that's delicious. So if you get a sheet cake pan, put your cooling rack inside of it and then pan sear those chicken breasts and then set those on top of that cooling rack and then throw it in the oven. That's what we'll do sometime for another video. but that's what I would suggest if you don't want to maybe do salmon this way. So pan searing will add almost like a crust, and it just makes such a difference. So I'm just going to kind of show you, just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on inside my oven with this. And as I've said several times, you don't necessarily have to cook these. I just like throwing them in the oven afterwards because I like them well done. So here's my salmon. And, you know, me personally, I would probably keep them in there for at least another 3 minutes. To see how the edges are starting to get almost kind of crunchy. Oh, it's so good that way. Okay, so we made a simple vinaigrette, salmon. This thing's going to be done in probably a grand total of 15 minutes. That basic. I'm really sorry to have lost connection twice like this. This is the first time I've ever had this happen, so I apologize for that. But salmon is finished. I'm going to pull it out of the oven. If you are struggling at staying on a plan because your food is bland, it doesn't have to be bland. You can go out to our website and order one of my cookbooks. You can stop by the gym. You can go to Amazon and order one of my cookbooks. Just search Debbie Portell. If you go out to YouTube and type in Debbie Portell, I have a lot of our Facebook Live videos. You can take a look at integritytraininggroup.com for more information on what Integrity does and to inquire about a 5-month nutrition program with myself where I will tell you exactly what to eat, how to prepare it, what to order when you eat out, what you should do when you travel, any vitamins and minerals you should be taking, and what you should be drinking every day. Just give us a call at 636-299-2208. We help people change their lifestyles every single day.